Welcome to our last section of chapter 10. It's so exciting. So at one point, I think I said that right now we were talking about arcs and arc measures, meaning it was all in degrees, and that eventually we would get to arc length. Well, that's actually not in chapter 10, that's in chapter 11. If I had written the book, I would have put it in chapter 10, but I didn't. So, hope you got that. So here's your essential question, and we're going to talk about the equation of a circle today. Here are the only write down fact notes of the day. You're going to want to put this equation of a circle somewhere. I actually have it on a little post-it on my desk here. If we were in classroom, I would have it written on the board for you. But you're going to want to have it handy for this section, because pretty much that's what we're using. We're just going to write it, and then we're going to read it, and then we're going to play with it, and you'll see. And only really once does this get hard. So, the center of your circle is the HK. So, that means that when you put it in the formula or take it out of the formula, you need to think about the opposite, because this negative is not, I don't want to say it like that. I don't know how to say it right, but it's not really part of your H. So let's get to some examples and it'll make a whole lot more sense, but write this down before you move on. So here's a big old circle for A, okay? And we need to figure out its center and its radius in order to write the standard equation. Well, when you have a picture, the center it's either given to you or it should kind of pop out at you. So here's our center. Right there, it's each of those is equal. If you really wanted to do fancy work, those would be equal as well. Okay, so here's our center, and that is the point -5, 4. And then we need to figure out our radius. Those are the two pieces you need to write the standard equation of the circle. The radius here, we can just count from our center over to the end point. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? You could pick a point somewhere else on the circle and use the distance formula. But when you're looking at a picture of a circle, for the most part, it will be easiest just to count from the center over, or down, or up, etc. So our our radius, we decided, is 4. Okay? So then we just need to put that into our formula. So we're going to do x and then the opposite of our x, so +5. That's what I meant by, if you, I don't want to say ignore the sign, but you want to do the opposite of whatever's in there, and then you don't have to worry about the fact that it was a minus in your formula. Okay? And then y and the opposite, so in this case, -4, equals your radius squared. Well, we know what 4 squared is. It's 16. So go ahead and write that out, okay? So moving down here to B, it tells us that the circle has a center at the origin. Well, what's the point that is the origin? That would be 0, 0. Hopefully we all remember that from 7th grade probably. And a radius of 3.5. So that means we can put it into our formula, x plus 0 or x minus 0. It doesn't really matter when it's 0. Plus y, oops, let's do -0. Technically it should be -0. Equals 3.5 squared, which is 12.25. Okay, well, we can simplify this one because we know that x minus 0 is x, so it's just x squared. And y minus 0 is y, so it's really just y squared. Anytime you have a center at the origin, your answer should look like this, because you can simplify this. For example, here, number 1, our center is at 0, 0, so we know we're going to have x squared plus y squared equals the radius squared, 2.5 squared is 6.25. You're done. You don't actually have to write out all those other steps. If you remember that center at 0, 0, means it's going to look like that on the left side. Now, of course, this number 2 here, it's not that easy because our center has a number. So in our formula, we're going to do x opposite of x, so plus 2 squared, plus y opposite of 5, so minus 5 squared equals 7 squared is 49. You're done. So now we're told we have this point on the circle here, and we have a center. Okay, well, we need to figure out the radius. We know the center, we need to know the radius. Center, radius, two things you need to know to write the standard equation of a circle. So, what is the radius? Well, you could take our 2 points and use the distance formula. But you're looking at a picture of a circle, so let's just count. From the center to one of our endpoints, we can count here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So radius equals 5. If you use the distance formula between those 2 points, you should also get that the radius equals 5. So we can now put that in, x, use the center point though, make sure you're using the center point there. Okay, opposite of x, so plus 1, whoops, squared, plus, I don't know what I was doing, y, opposite of y, 5 squared, 25, you're done. Okay, so here we don't have a pretty picture of a circle. Now, if you have graph paper, I suppose you could try to go make yourself a circle, okay? But that's probably more complicated than just using the distance formula at this point. So go find yourself the distance formula if you need to. Let's use this as x1, y, whoops, y, my brain and my pencil are not working together, y1, x2, y2, okay, and put them into our distance formula. Remember, that's the one with the big square root. If you need to, go Google distance formula. We're going to subtract our x's, so x2 minus x1, 1 minus 4 squared, plus y2 minus y1, 4 minus 1 squared, okay? Now, if you happen to have a fancy calculator, you could just put it in there and get an answer. But most of us don't, so we'll do, that's negative 3 squared plus 3 squared gives us 9 plus 9, which gives us the square root of 18. Okay, now let me tell you a little secret. Leave it as the square root of 18. It's gonna, your math is gonna actually be easier if you do that. Okay, so so now we can take the center, let me change pens. We can take the center and our radius, remember that's what we were finding out, and put it into our formula. So x opposite of x minus 1 squared plus y opposite of y minus 4 squared equals our radius squared. Well, why leave it as a square root? Well, because when you square a square root, you just get the radicand. So all of that really just equals 18. Okay, and here's where we start to get just a little bit complicated. Okay, and have to go back on some of that prior knowledge, but just go with me here, and maybe using the skills from last semester will actually help you learn them a little bit better. Okay, so we have this equation, but it's not in our standard form. Okay, so let's get it into the standard form so we can find the center and the radius. And by the way, if it tells you to graph, you don't actually have to graph anything. Okay, don't worry about graphing stuff, especially circles right now. But we do need to find the center and the radius. Okay, so first we need to get this thing looking somewhat like our standard equation of a circle. So let's put all of our x's together and our y's together, and then let's get this guy over here to the other side. So that means we're going to have x squared minus 2x plus y squared plus 6y, and then let's add that to the other side so we get equals 6. Okay? Because we know we need a number over on that right side, right? So eventually that final number will be our radius. We're not there yet though. Sorry. Okay, so here's where the complicated part starts. We need to get this and this into those binomials, right? So we have to complete the square. Okay, I know it's not something you've ever wanted to do. So just bear with me. And I can't remember how many of these I gave you in your assignment, but if I gave you more than one, only do one of them, okay? I just want to know that you know the process. Okay, so we need to take our x's and our y's. We actually have to complete the square twice, once with our x's and once with our y's. Okay, so if you remember, completing the square is where we're going to take half of b, okay, half of b, so half of negative 2 is negative 1, square that, and add it to both sides. So we're going to do x squared minus 2x plus 1. Half of b, half of our negative 2, is negative 1. Square negative 1, you get plus 1. We have to add it to the other side as well, though. If we add it to one side, we got to add it to the other side. Okay? And then we're going to take our y stuff, okay? Oops, plus y squared. Half of 6 is 3, right? Half of 6 is 3. Square that, you get 9. Add a 9 to both sides. Hopefully you're still with me. Maybe this is coming back to you. Okay? And then we need to factor our x's and factor our y's. Okay? Well, this was actually the easy part that a lot of you didn't catch on with, I don't think. That it ends up being the half of the y. I mean, half of the b. Okay? So that means we've got x minus 1 squared. Okay? Plus y plus 3 squared. Because remember, it was a half. Half of 6 was 3. Equals 6 plus 1 plus 9 is 16. Hey, look. That looks an awful lot like our standard equation of a circle. Yay! But we didn't answer the question yet. We need to say, what's the center? What is the radius? Well, our center is going to come here, right? Opposite of negative 1 is 1. Opposite of 3 is negative 3. That's our center. Take the square root of that, and we get our radius. Okay? I'm gonna say all of those steps again. Here we go. So first we took and we put our x's together here and our y's together and moved our constant over to the right. And then we took half of our b, square it, and that's how we got our 1. Half of our b, square it, that's how we got our 9. Don't forget, this was a step a lot of you forgot. Don't forget to add those two things over here on the right as well. Okay? And then we factored that, but we know what the factor is. That factor is going to be whatever half of b was. Whatever half of b was. Okay? The whole point is to get this number and this number so that we know what to add over here. So that we know what our end number is here. That's the whole point of completing the square. Okay? Okay, watch it 10 times if you need to. There you go. Here's your assignment. Have a good day.